So Ubuntu 24.04 has just been released. 24 because we're in 2024.04 because it's April. And the important thing is this is a long-term support release, LTS release, which means out of the gate you're getting 5 years of support, and that can be extended by another 5 years. So if you follow the right programs, you can get support for this until 2034. Of course, that's very important when you're installing systems. Even in your home, you want to know it's going to get updates for the next 10 years, keep you nice and safe. As you'd expect with the newest version, lots of things have been updated. You've got the Linux kernel 6.8, you've got GNOME 46 for the desktop, there's a new installer, there's a new app center, and so much more. So if you want to find out more, please let me explain. Now for most of this video I'm going to be showing you the desktop, all the new things that we see kind of on the outside. But before we do that, I want to talk a bit about what's going on the inside. In this case, the new Linux kernel 6.8. Now the biggest change is with the scheduler. Now, of course, every new version of the Linux kernel has hundreds, thousands of changes to it. But the biggest change is with the new scheduler. Now the new scheduler is quite a mouthful. Let me see if I can get this right. It's the earliest eligible virtual deadline first scheduler, the EEVDF scheduler. Now the scheduler decides what process, what task, what program runs next. Now scheduling is a fairly complicated subject. You've got priorities, for example. One task has a greater priority, so maybe you want to give it more CPU time. Another task might be waiting for disk access, for network access, so it's kind of frozen, stalled, waiting for something to happen. But if you've got, for example, 5 processes that are all equally raring and ready to go, you want to make sure that each of those 5 processes gets an equal slice of the CPU. If there are 5 of them, 20% of the CPU each. Now the current scheduler does things in its fairest possible way, but the new scheduler has an interesting tweak to it. And what it does is that it looks at each of the processes that are waiting to be run and sees should they have been run up until now and they haven't been, and calculates a thing called the lag factor. How much is it lagging behind? It should really have been given some time and it hasn't for whatever reason. So when the lag factor starts to grow, the scheduler says that one is the one that's more important. That's the one that's going to be scheduled next. So it's meant to enable tasks to be more responsive because there's not so much lag, because your process does get the CPU time it deserves, and it does that in the fairest way. Anyway, it's now the default scheduler for the 6.8 Linux kernel, and therefore the default scheduler for Ubuntu 24.04. Okay, let's head over to the desktop and start taking a look at this new version. Now the install process has been rewritten in Flutter, very easy to go through now, looking very sleek. All the normal things you'd expect to see, including using accessibility features, how you want to connect to the internet. There's also this ability here to do an automated install, which is great for system admins. They can add in a YAML file, and that kind of helps the automated configuration without having to go through all the steps along the way. And you can select what software you'd like to install. I always go for the extended selection, and I always add in third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi and any additional stuff that can be downloaded from the internet during install. I like to have a full complete system when I do these installs. Then you have to partition your disk as you would normally, and then finally you need to put in your username and password and a name for the computer. After you've done that, the install will go ahead. Now it's worth noting that if you are installing Ubuntu on a machine with an existing operating system, you need to be very clear about what you're doing, because you could erase that previous operating system and lose all your data if you're not careful. There are some options for allowing you to install them side by side. However, that is an advanced thing, and you really need to make sure that you've watched tutorials, read about that before you do it. So bottom line, I don't want you to lose any of your data when you install this. So either install it on a machine that you want to wipe completely, a new hard drive, a new SSD, or make sure you know what you're doing so that you don't lose any of your data. And once the install has finished, you can then go ahead and restart your PC, and it will boot up into the new version of Ubuntu. Once you've rebooted, there's an onboarding process where you can join Ubuntu Pro. You can share your telemetry if that's what you desire to do, and it just welcomes you to the desktop. Okay, so here we are on the desktop. This is based on GNOME 46. Down here in the bottom left hand corner we now have the Show Apps button, and that will bring up the apps that you've got installed and allows you to very quickly find them. So a few things to note about GNOME 46. For example, here in the File Explorer there is now this search everywhere, so you can click here and then you can start to do searching for files, for what's open in the window, all kinds of stuff. That's built in across GNOME 46 completely. If we now make our way to settings, a few interesting things to note here. First of all, now the online account section has been completely revamped. For example, the authorization for accounts now uses the default web browser, whatever it is that you've chosen, and not an embedded web view as it was before. And we now also have support for Microsoft OneDrive, which you can then connect to and get access to your files. Also, while here in settings, it's worth noting there's this new section called System, which covers language, date, time, remote desktop, secure shell, and so on. And that is a new section here in the settings. And also under the remote desktop section for that system, you can now connect to the desktop using desktop sharing, but it's using RDP. So here is, so we're going to share Gary 20.04 LTS over RDP. Now the important thing is you need to check the password that generates. It's not the same as your login for the user Gary that I've got here. This is not my password, so I'm going to set a password here that will be easy to try. There you go, secret. Okay, and now we'll see whether we can connect to it using RDP. And there we go, I'm now connected using RDP to this machine. Okay, the other big change is with the App Center. You go over here to click on the App Center. This has been rewritten again using Flutter, and you've got the Explore part. The front page here allows you to look at common apps that you might want to dive into. You've got featured, again, recommended apps. Then you can go into productivity, development, and so on. And another interesting thing, if I want to search, let's say, for a web browser, so we'll just put browser in here. You can search by whether you want the Snap or the Debian package versions. So some things, for example, there aren't available in Debian package. In fact, Snap really takes prominence now with this latest iteration of Ubuntu. Debian packages are still available for some things, but as you can see here, not available for everything. Snap really is the default for many of these things. Now, some people like that, some people don't. We'll see how the community reacts to that. Now, for developers, lots of the tool chains have been updated. The default version of GCC is actually the 13.2 version. However, you can install GCC 14. And once you've done that, you have to specifically call it with GCC 14 rather than just GCC, and that will give you 14.0.1 for this first release. Likewise, Python 3 has been updated to 13.12.3. OpenJDK now defaults to the long-term support version 21. LLVM, so that's CLang, has now been updated to version 18. And likewise, Go has been updated to version 1.2.2. Rust now defaults to version 1.75, and there is also support for .NET 8, which is now the default. With the introduction of .NET 8, Ubuntu is taking a significant step forward in supporting the .NET community. .NET 8 will be fully supported on Ubuntu 24.04 LTS and 22.04 LTS for the entire life cycle of both releases. And that's about it, really. Everything should be very familiar to users of Ubuntu. You get access to things like LibreOffice and web browsers and Visual Studio Code and all other kind of things that you could want. They are there available via the App Center, and really you are, within a few clicks, you are up and running, doing everything that you could want to do. Okay, so there you have it, Ubuntu 24.04. Now, on top of the default version, there are plenty of spins available as well that come with a whole bunch of different desktops. For example, there's one with the KDE desktop, there's one with the Mate desktop, there's one with the Cinnamon desktop, there's one aimed at multimedia creation, there's one aimed at education, there's a lightweight version, and so on. Now they're also available released today, and you can download those through the official channels. Now I'd love to hear what you think about the latest version, because it is a long-term support version. That's why it's so important. Could be running something in your home office, in your enterprise for the next 10 years. I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comments below. Okay, that's it. My name's Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you like these kind of videos, then please stick around and subscribe to the channel. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.